What is up, Tube users, and welcome to another installment of fantastically fun games for $15. Today, we are talking about one of my favorite and most nostalgic games of all time, Kingsway. This game is so fantastically fun that you can sink a lot of time into for only $10. Kingsway is such a fun and interesting game because it takes elements from RPGs, roguelites, and turn-based strategy games and puts them into a nostalgic and fun game. I mean, as you can see, it just takes you back to that fun and nostalgic Windows 95 games like Rogue and Bard's Tale and all those different kinds of games, but it has a modern feel to it, which just makes it so much fun. And that's a common trope that I've seen in newer games as of recently. A lot of games are taking from these old games and just putting it into a new modern system, and just it makes it better. I mean, most of those games from back in the day, they don't really hold up by today's standards at all, but bringing it into a new light, creating new and different mechanics, and making it more modern, the games still feel fresh and they are fun to play. And this game is just a perfect example of that. I mean, just looking at it brings you back to the 90s, but the way that it plays and the way that it feels is totally modern, which makes it that much more fun to play. And I love that this game branches out into different genres of games. You have your typical RPG stuff by creating a fantasy character that each have different abilities. You have your roguelike elements by creating a fresh run each time you go in with different loots and different monsters that you'll face throughout the run. And you have your turn-based strategy and combat, which is kind of slow paced at the start, but it really ramps up and really gets exciting towards the end of the game. And one of my favorite things about this is the roguelite element of this game, in that each time you finish a run, even if you die or don't complete the game, you can bury a memento from your run and allow you to use that in your next run. So if there's like a certain item or a certain weapon that you really like and is really powerful, you can keep that and carry it over to your next run. Another thing this game does so well is ticking all of those nostalgic boxes. I mean, it really does have that feel of playing on a Windows 95 OS. You have the nostalgic fantasy music that sounds like it's from the 1990s. You have all your different bags and character slots that just don't fit the screen properly. It just totally feels like a game from the 1990s, which is just so brilliant. Another way this game just feels so nostalgic and modern to me is it harkens me back to those classic WoW days of just standing and hitting mobs. Sure, it's kind of the same thing here, you're just clicking and getting numbers on the screen, but when you get those big numbers, there's no better feeling. And this game does a really good job of making each different class feel totally unique to one another. You have your warrior who's really good at dual wielding and using strength to their advantage. You have your rogues who can use like daggers and stuff and uses agility to their advantage. And then you have like your mages that use staffs and stuff and uses intellect to their advantage. So it's a really nice blend of a whole lot of different classes. And this game came out in 2017, and it just recently, I think a couple years back, got a big update that added a whole bunch of new quests, new zones, new skills, monsters, items, just a whole lot of new content for the game, and it just made it even more fun to play. And that's one thing I like about these repeatable roguelites. Sure, you'll go through runs and have a lot of the same quests and such that you'll do over and over again, and you'll just skip the dialogue because you've seen it 100 times, but then you'll go on a run and you'll get a new quest that you haven't ever seen before, and it's totally interesting and really rewarding to see that kind of thing. Another key element to roguelites, and something that Kingsway does really well, is the loot system in this game. You only have 4 tiers of loot in this game. You have your common items that don't really have any stats on them. You have your purple items that give you a buff but also have a debuff attached to them. Then you have your blue items that usually just give good buffs to you. And then you have your sweet, sweet gold items that give a lot of buffs and are really strong. And typically you'll only find those off bosses, which just makes killing a boss that more satisfying. So now that we've talked about the good in this game, let's talk about some of the not so good things about this game in my opinion. One of the biggest gripes I have with this game is the fact that I cannot expand or shrink any windows in this game. It just tears my OCD apart to have all these different windows open that are mismatched and don't fit properly into the screen. I just want to please get everything fit properly onto the screen. Another small gripe I have with this game is the power scaling in it. I feel like you start out really weak, like it can be tough to kill just one mob and survive, and then after you kill the first boss and get your first gold item, the power scaling just goes up significantly where you become an unstoppable boss that can just kill everything super easily and you don't even have to worry about blocking. I feel like there needs to be a better middle ground to getting to that unstoppable level. Another small issue I have, and maybe this is just because I haven't finished every ending in the game yet, is I want to be able to kill the final boss, which is the Sky Eater or something like that, just with my character at its end game. Typically I like to go to the underworld and kill the demon lord or whatever his name is, and then come back and kill the Sky World. That's usually how I finish the game, and that's how I finish this run. But after you come back to the overworld, you just become this ungodly, overpowered monstrosity that can just easily kill the Sky World without even having to block or use potions or anything. So I wish there was some balance to that final boss fight. Other than those small issues, I really do love this game, and it's a whole lot of fun to play. It's just an easy game to put on some tunes or just even listen to the soundtrack, because the soundtrack is really good in this game, and just vibe out slaying things. So with the good and the bad out of the way, let's now dive into some tips and tricks I have for anyone that wants to try out this game. My first tip, and probably the most important one, is to keep a window of your potions up somewhere on your screen. As you can see here, I have 2 potions up on the left hand side, and it just makes it easy when you're in a pinch to be able to use those potions, because if you just keep them in your bags, it can be hard to double click them, find where the window opens, and then use it. So it's better to just keep them open and keep them somewhere on your screen so you know where to use them when you need to use them. Now let's go over the 4 key stats in this game. Strength gives you more melee damage, Vitality gives you more health, Intellect gives you more magic, and Agility gives you more attack speed. Depending on what class you're running, you want to spec into more of one of those 3. I think Vitality is the only one that you hardly ever, if at all, want to spec into, because more health doesn't really help at all, because as you level up, you just gain more health naturally. So as you can see here, I'm playing a warrior, and typically with a warrior you want to spec mainly into strength. You can get some agility for faster attack speed, and I usually get a few points into intellect as well, because I'll use magic for some of my abilities. Now let's go over some of the items in the game, because that's another issue that I have, is that a lot of the items in this game don't really tell you what they do. You just have to find out for yourself. A couple of the most important items to have in your bags at all times are the way crystals, which allow you to teleport out of a dungeon and cave at any point in time, and the King's Icon, which are key looking items that can transport you to the nearest fort, which can be good for dropping off items or just teleporting to a different part of the map that you haven't been. I also like to keep a couple of invisibility potions on me. For endgame stuff. When you get close to endgame, you just start fighting a bunch of mobs that don't really drop anything good. It can be really tough to fight, so it's good to use those invisibility potions to get around without having to fight a whole bunch of mobs. But other than those things, I feel like most of the other items are just kind of used at your own discretion. I think antidotes aren't that great to have. I mean, I have a couple in my bags just in case, but I hardly ever use them because I never see myself getting poisoned. Cure-alls are also really good because they heal and can cure any effects or curses that you have on you. But then again, I don't hardly ever get any curses on me, so it's not that big a deal. Potions of attack are another one that's kind of iffy too. I mean, they're good at getting you attack speed. They're good to use at the start of a boss, I would say, but they're not really that necessary. And then smoke bombs are another thing that I've literally never used because I never want to escape a fight usually, so I just think it's better to just sell those items if you have them. Other than that, I'll typically go to towns and forts just to go find a potion shop because full potions and full potions of magic are definitely the best potions in the game, and I'll buy those anytime I see them. Also, crescent potions are really good just to use right away because they grant you 1 stat point, which can help you out. Another thing I'm always on the lookout for are bags. Typical of any RPG is managing your bag space, and this game is no different. The good thing about getting more bags is they don't actually take up weight in your first bag. They just add on to your full carry capacity. Other than those things, the only other 2 items that I would definitely use if other than those things, the only other items that I would look out for and use if you actually are able to get them are 2 different quest items that you can get. It's the Fotid potion. I don't know how to pronounce that exactly, but consuming that gets you 1 skill point, and the Vitality potion, which is another quest item that grants you 4 vitality. So both those are just really good to use as soon as you get them. But other than that, any weapons or armor that you get are typically just random rolls of different stats on them, so it really comes down to what your class is and what you need for your class, so just to use any items at your own discretion. Another tip I have for people playing this game is to pick up any of those random items that you find, like your skulls, your beast eyes, your demon wards, any of those random trash items you definitely want to pick up and keep. Most of those are used in just random quests that you'll pick up, and you can go to a fort and just put them in your storage so they don't take up a ton of bag space, but you definitely want to be completing quests in the game because that's the best way to get XP, so just keeping those in your storage, and you can use them in your storage for quest turn-ins, so it doesn't take any space or anything like that. Another tip I have is, unless you're trying to go for a specific ending, is to activate all the pillars in this game. All you have to do to activate a pillar is to offer up 1 blue item from your inventory or on your person, and it will grant you 1 extra skill point, which is super valuable. As you can see in this run, I offered up all of the different pillars to get more skill points, and after you've activated all the pillars, it unlocks a portal to the underworld, which is the ending that I chose in this run. But once you do get good and confident in this game of just being able to beat the final boss every time, is to go for different endings in this game, because each ending unlocks new items, new characters that you can play, and it's just really fun to see a different side of the story. Another tip I have for people starting out in this game and starting a new run is to stay west for as long as possible. The oncoming storm does come from west and moves eastward, but it doesn't come for a few days of in-game time, so you have time to just stay west. So I would typically go from north to south as much as possible, just killing enemies and leveling up, because the further you go east, the higher level the enemies are going to be, so it just gets harder and harder the further you go east. Another tip I have for when you're leveling up is to use the classic WoW strat for leveling. When you level up in this game, you regain all of your health and all of your magic, so using that to your advantage can really be helpful. So typically when I'm about to level up, I'll use all of my magic that I can, and I won't block anything because I know I'm just going to get full HP and magic back. One final tip I have for this game is to not underestimate blocking, especially early on. Blocking is super useful for reducing incoming damage. I think without a shield, it reduces damage by 50%, and with a shield, depending on the defense rating of the shield, it reduces it by even more. So definitely be blocking as much as you can. As you can see in this run, I used a lot of blocking early on because you do take a lot of damage, and you don't have a lot of health or resources to regain health early on. But now I'm at a point where I don't need to block anything because I have a ton of full health potions and potions in general, so I don't really need to block anything. I'll just use health potions if I need to regain HP. Oh, and one final thing I want to go over is how to beat this game just with the normal ending, because this game doesn't do a really good job of telling you what you need to do in order to beat the game. You just kind of have to go around and explore and find out for yourself, which can be kind of frustrating, so I'll just lay it out how to beat the game normally. So you'll want to do what I'm doing here actually and go around and light the 3 beacons that are around the map. You're able to find where those 3 beacons are located by going to one of the forts and looking at your map that's located in your guild bank. Looking at the map will show you these 3 circular beacons that are somewhere around the map, and you just navigate your way to them, activate them. A boss will appear that drops some really good loot, but they can also be kind of tough, so make sure you're prepared for those fights. And then once you've activated all 3 of the beacons, you go to the main fortress, I guess is what it is. It shows up like a different color than the other fortresses that are around the map, so just go there. You'll be able to enter once the 3 beacons are activated, and just go talk to the king, and I'll let the rest be a mystery for you guys. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Leave a like if you did, comment any other tips and tricks that you have for this game, and make sure to hit that subscribe button for more content. I'll let the finish of this run play out, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.
that rhythm.